Hello, my beautiful mythical creatures. I'm back at you with another Podfic. We're doing Kaijin by Namadi on AO3, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering names. I don't think I introduced myself, but I am Ace, he, she. And we are doing Chapter 5, Crayons and Case Files. Summary. What have our crime fighters been up to? Here is the trigger warnings for this chapter. I forgot what it was called for a sec, but here's trigger warnings for this chapter. Dissociation, fighting. Description of medical experimentations. Description of drug use. I'm going to adjust my mic for a sec. There we go. On with the chapter. Damn the hero commission. Shota sat on the couch while Hisashi silently wrapped his hand. The blonde hadn't even scolded him for punching a... Oops, sorry. The blonde hadn't even scolded him for punching a hole in the living room wall. Even with his jaw clenched to the point of cramping, both Shota and both Shota and Nao could hear a low static, like an untuned radio. The detective was slumped in an armchair, his work clothes still on. He stared at the ceiling. Namasa had come through the door just as Hisashi was placing his share of dinner in the fridge. Neither hero had expected him home tonight. In fact, the three of them hadn't all been home together in a month. Since the meeting, all of them had thrown themselves into work. Now had contacted every police station in the surrounding cities, asking them to be on the lookout for a green-haired, green-eyed boy. He dug through every scrap of information anyone had on the Hisakaizai, looking for any hint of where they may have taken Izuku. Following the car had been a dead end. As soon as it left the city, they lost track of it. Days of scanning the street cameras in the surrounding cities had yielded nothing. Eventually, the task force concluded that they had switched vehicles somewhere in the countryside. By now, Noi was involved in nearly every human trafficking investigation in Misitofu and 5 surrounding cities. Nothing was overlooked. Nothing was forgotten. Shota had alerted every underground hero he knew and put the word out through his network of vigilantes and underground informants. He spent days on patrol in every slum, crime alley, and red light district he could find. He only ever slept at home if he was patrolling Misitofu. Otherwise, he crashed at local underground hero agencies or some seedy motel. Hisashi was doing the same with the Limelight Hero Network. He took a hiatus from his show and traveled from agency to agency, working with other Limelight heroes to collect intel from everyday citizens. Their first break had come almost a month after Izuku disappeared. Trigger was growing in popularity, and the supply was meeting the demand. On the surface, it was being dealt by local gangs, but the amount of product being moved was cause for concern. Even the dealers, the Limelight heroes were catching selling to students, had felony level amounts of the drug. Shota broke up a Trigger deal just about every hour, and his underground network was reporting even more. A hunch on Noi's part had him and Sansa investigating when the spike in Trigger had started. It was a mere month before the first missing quirkless person was taken, so they followed the money and found the supplier. It was the Kaijin. I am so sorry if I'm butchering that. I don't know why I can't say it. Kaijin. Anyhow, their bankroll's something big, Namasa informed the task force the next meeting. I didn't think it coincide that the biggest influx of Trigger since it introduced started the same time the quirkless kidnappings. Night-Eye took the file from Centipeter. They're stalking the docks too. In several districts, the normal drug suppliers has been ousted by someone associated with the Kaijin. We ran background checks, and the ones that were prominent to keep their empire have their hands in human trafficking. The ones that shied away from it were replaced. So the Trigger trafficking and the human trafficking are connected somehow. Damn it, I keep saying that like it's a question. So the Trigger trafficking and the human trafficking are connected somehow. Senza concluded. Not just quirkless people now either. Midnight spoke up. My connections in the club scene have reported an increase in trafficking, looking for specific quirks. What kind of quirks? Shota asked. Your kind of quirk, actually, Midnight replied. They're looking for people that can manipulate quirks, erase quirks, strengthen them. Damn it. They're looking for people that can manipulate quirks, erase them, strengthen them, weaken them, whatever they can find. We have to find the importer, Centipeter said, his mandibles clicking. Just so you guys know, the mandibles are where the bottom jaw connects to the top. Ta-da! I know stuff. They may have information on the human trafficking. If not, we will at least cut off their funding. It may give us time before a new round of kidnappings occur. Any news on the kid? It was always Fat Gum that asked. Always fearful that they wouldn't have an answer, and terrified they would. No news. We're positive he's not in Misitafu. The car disappeared to the northwest. There's 2 cities that way. But they could have swung around in any direction once they weren't being watched. They were silent, each one of them wrestling with the endless darkness that threatened to overtake them when they weren't fast enough, weren't smart enough, weren't strong enough. Trying to grab it by the throat and telling it that they hadn't failed yet, unless they found the kid cold in some alley. He was still out there. He was still alive. I'll warn the Hero Commission that they may have to authorize a raid in the next month, and that we need more heroes. Nao's meeting with the commission was a few days later. That night, the detective walked into the apartment he shared with Hisashi and Shota and told them the commission had authorized the raid upon its successful completion. The task force was to be dissolved, effective immediately. Shota had punched the wall. Why would they do this? Hisashi asked as he finished tying Shota's bandages. There's still so much to be done after the raid. Who's going to investigate the human trafficking? Nao ran his hands down his face. The commission doesn't care about the quirkless human trafficking. They want the drug off the street. And that's all. Shota balled his fists until he could feel the sting of his split knuckles. Hisashi gently grabbed his hands. Stop that show. We can figure this out. Quirkless bastards, Shota growled. How could they see people suffering, a child suffering, and decide to do nothing? They told me the kid was likely dead and I should move on to something important. Hisashi and Shota's eyes snapped to their third. His gaze was misty. They hadn't seen him break down like this since his rookie days. Oh no, Hisashi cooed. He hurried over and sat on the arm of the chair, rubbing soothing circles on his back. Nao's phone rang, vibrating across the tabletop. Shota saw Sir Night-Eye flash on the screen and picked it up. Night-Eye? Eraserhead, where's Sakauchi? He's right here. I'm assuming you heard? The commission sent out an email to the whole task force. Centipeter's voice came over the line. Nao's phone vibrated again. Midnight's name popped up. Hang on, Midnight's calling. I'm going to conference her. Put on speaker, show. Nao said softly, his eyes alert again, even as he was clenching Zashi's hand. Night-Eye, it's Eraserhead. You're on speaker with Sakauchi and President Mike. Night-Eye and Centipeter are conferenced in. Hello, boys. I have Sansa and Fat Gum here. Why are you all together? Hisashi asked. Fat and I were patrolling near the station when we got the email. We stopped by to talk to Sakauchi, but he wasn't here. I came straight home after my meeting, Nao explained. I assume this said some awful quirkless things about abandoning the search for a green bean. You assume correctly. We can't stop looking for him, Fat Gum insisted. And we won't, Hizashi assured him. But the commission won't allow us to keep the evidence from the raid. We'll lose our only lead. As everyone in the apartment and at the police station fell silent, they could hear a hushed conversation happening between Night-Eye and Centipeter. Care to share with the class? Shota asked, his usual grumpiness getting a healthy dose from his frustration. What if I gave you time to copy the evidence? Night-Eye asked. Then we'd continue the investigation on the down low. Nao answered. Are you sure, Nao? Sansa asked. From anyone else, it would have sounded like disapproval. But Sansa had always been Nao's extra layer of reason, even as he stood solidly by his side. This is evidence tampering at best. I'm sure. I won't ask any of you to join me, but you're welcome. You know Eraser and I will help, Hizashi assured him. Sounds exciting, Night-Eye said. I'm in, Fat Gum agreed. Sansa didn't answer. He didn't need to. Centipeter and I will likely be moved to the Trigger Task Force after the raid. We can feed you what information we can, Night-Eye offered. Okay, what's the plan? Nao asked. We narrowed down the import city to a couple places around the bay, Night-Eye reported. It will take more investigation to narrow down the exact location. Once we have the main base, we'll tell the Hero Commission we narrowed it down to 2 places. We raid them both at the same time, and make sure the Commission is looking at the wrong one. Everyone was silent, surprised that the logical, rule-abiding Sir Night-Eye had just proposed to lie to the Commission. Very devious, sir, Midnight commented. What happened to your no-nonsense by-the-book reputation? Namasa played his game well, Night-Eye answered, causing Nemo to squint his eyes at the phone in confusion. I have an All Might action figure on my desk. It's a little worse for wear, but it helps me remember that while logic gets the job done, emotions give you the strength to get there. I love that so much. And we continue on. It took a few more weeks to find the head of the snake, a warehouse in an abandoned area. They found it by following a truck that had picked up some crates from a pier controlled by the Hisakai. The pier could be their distraction. Night-Eye, Centipeter, Midnight, and Fat Gum would hit the pier with their new team. Sansa, Sakauchi, Eraserhead, and President Mike would take their team and hit the warehouse. Shota and Hizashi had filled their team with heroes they trusted. If asked, they would look the other way and forget, with the commission convinced that the warehouse was simply the closest distributor center they had they hadn't assigned any of their people to it. Eraserhead and a couple other undergrounds had been watching the building for most of the night. President Mike, Sakauchi, and Sansa were hunkered down in nearby warehouses, with some Limelight and Twilight heroes waiting for the go signal. Eraser watched for the patrolling guards to circle again, while cataloging the entrances on his side of the building. A rusty door beside a padlocked landing dock, providing access to the alley. A few low-bearing windows were spread evenly across the wall. The patrol made another pass. It was an unknown thug in a leather jacket and stretch. When Eraser had seen the gangly man, he had to grip the edge of the building, a risk discovering by delivering death from above. The pair disappeared around the corner, Eraser checking in with the under watching the other side of the building. Night Jumper patrol incoming. Same guys as last time. Roger, Roger, was the reply. Looking back down at the alley, Eraser suddenly had the feeling something had changed. Some minimal detail was taunting him, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The alley was quiet. The dumpsters and the sorting trash hadn't moved. There was no way anyone had opened the door without the rusty metal protesting loudly. His comms crackled. The patrol has returned to their post at the entrance. Nothing has changed in the last couple hours. Dang it. Ground team is in place. Roof team, get ready. Sakauchi ordered. Jumping over the alley, Eraserhead silently made his way to the main. Eraserhead made his way over to the maintenance hatch. He was joined by Gran Torino, a legend to the few heroes who knew of him. He had been a pro longer than most could dream of, and was gearing up for retirement. Ready to go, Ziggy? Eraser nodded. The old man hummed thoughtfully. I don't know what you and your pals are up to, but I trust you pulled the wool over the Commission's eyes for a good reason. Eraserhead looked at the older man in the eyes. He knew at least a few of the heroes they had recruited would realize that the warehouse wasn't what they had said it was. The best reasons, Eraser replied, just as his comms crackled. We are go. Repeat, we are go. Ripping the hatch open, Eraser dropped to the catwalk below with Eraser activated. Gran Torino zipped in after him, quickly bouncing his way to the floor and knocking out the closest thugs in the head. He dropped immediately. The Limelight and Twilight heroes pouring in from every entrance. President Mike released a scream towards several people gathered at the card table, sending them flying into the wall. Eraser used his capture weapon to rappel down and dispatched a few who were just stunned. Night Jumper materialized out of the shadows and secured a couple more. They could use you on the other side, Eraser said, his eyes roving over the action, erasing quirks wherever there was resistance. Night Jumper ducked back into the shadows and disappeared. Eraser! The basement! Turning to where the blueprints had indicated the stairwell was as Eraser saw a hulking beast man disappearing around the corner. Where? Eraser growled and gave chase. Leaping down the stairs, Eraser dashed after the thug he most wanted to get his hands on. The basement was mostly open, but there were several storage rooms and workshops around the perimeter. Ware was hurrying towards where Eraser knew there was an emergency exit, but was surprised when the Wolfman stopped outside of one of the storage rooms and fumbled with a key. It was all the time Eraser needed to land a flying kick into his ribs. Ware gained his balance fast and charged at Eraser. The hero ducked under his claws and delivered a few devastating hay marks to the wolf's gut. Ware kicked at him, and Eraser was forced to jump back into a fighting stance. He was ready for another charge, but Ware had turned back towards the door. Eraser sent out his capture weapon, stopping the thug in his tracks. Spinning around with a guttural growl, Ware grabbed the capture weapon and pulled. Expecting resistance, he wasn't prepared when Eraser used the momentum to fly forward and punch him square in the nose with a satisfying crunch. A weaker man would have been too stunned to retaliate, but the Wolfman grabbed Eraser and shredded his jumpsuit, but was unable to penetrate the armor underneath. He threw the hero against the wall, jaw wide and going for the throat. Thinking quickly, Eraser drew one of his knives and buried it into the thug's furry shoulder. The man howled and released the hero, stumbling back. Using an overhead pipe, Eraser pulled himself up with his capture weapon and delivered a solid kick to the side of Ware's head, finally knocking the beast man out. Breathing heavily, Eraser produced a pair of heavy-duty handcuffs meant for criminals with mutation quirks. If he stomped on the man's spine while securing them, that was no one's business. Reaching for his ear to call for assistance, Eraserhead's eyes were drawn to the set of keys Ware had dropped. He glanced at the door the man had been so determined to access. What the hell was in there? President Mike assisted his fellow heroes in securing the last of the thugs. The element of surprise had caught the majority of the criminals off guard and made the fight easier than expected. Namasa was taking photos of everyone they had arrested as they were escorted outside, jotting down what information he could gather in a notebook. Sorry, I had to adjust my hand there. They would look them up in the police database later. As Mike was cuffing a woman with wire for hair, Gran Torino approached him. "I'll take her. You should go to the foreman's office. Kitty Cop found a lot of documents. You'll need the time you can. You'll need all the time you can get to make copies of everything." Mike stared at the elderly hero for a moment, not entirely surprised that the underground legend was on to them. "Thanks, Grand." Mike waved to get Nomo's attention and jerked his head towards where the foreman's office was. Inside would have looked like a normal clinic if it wasn't for the gurney and chair fitted with restraints. Sansa was going through the drawers of a neatly organized desk in the corner. One of Shota's under's night jumper was slouched nearby on a plastic chair. He stared at the floor with unseeing eyes. "What happened to him?" Nemo asked. Sansa paused and took a deep, shaky breath. He pointed at a voice recorder on the corner of the desk. There were a few files and tapes on the desk. They were obviously important enough to keep in reach. We thought it would be helpful to listen while we searched. Sansa visibly shivered, his fur standing on end. "I never want to hear someone scream like that again." He handed a file to Nemo. It was marked Phase 2, Subject 11. The same as the label they could see on the tape through the little window of the recorder. Looking over Nemo's shoulder, Hizashi saw a medical report with the outline of a human body printed on it. A red Y was drawn across the torso. Notes were written on the side. Phase 2, June 16th. 12:10, Subject 11 arrived. 12:20, surgery started. 12:23, Nurse R detected oncoming cardiac arrest. Push 2 milligrams of adrenaline. 12:25, surgery resumed. 12:27, Subject 11 began vomiting. Due to the presence of anaphylactic, Subject 11 was put under anesthesia. Biopsy findings: heart, normal. Lungs, normal. Liver, normal. Appendix, removed. Kidney, normal. Spleen, normal. Digestive tract, normal. I actually had to close my eyes to say that. Wow. 13:11. Incisions closed and healed. Subject 11 approved for Phase 3. Mike looked over at the dissociating underground hero. If that recording was made during the surgery and the patient hadn't been anesthetized until 17 minutes in, he couldn't imagine how agonizing those screams had been. Mike walked over and crouched into Night Jumper's field of vision. "Jumper, go get some air. You've done enough." The man finally focused on President Mike's face. He nodded slowly and left on unsteady legs. "You're all right, Sansa?" Nemo asked his friend. Sansa nodded. Let's just get all these copied so we can find these bastards. Nao and Hizashi nodded. They both understood using work as a distraction. What else did you find? Sansa pushed a stack of documents towards them. There were 4 files total. Phase 1, Subject 11. Phase 2, Subject 11. Phase 3, Subject 11. The last simply said Subject 11. The last one must be Subject 11. This last one must be Subject 11's medical information, Mike said as he picked up the file and opened it. He didn't realize what he was looking at first. He didn't recognize the green hair or the recognizable scar on Subject 11's cheek. The image of the child unconscious on an exam table was so far from the smiling boy they were looking for that he went right to reading. Subject 11, Midoriya Izuku. Birth date, July 15th, XXXX. Quirk, quirkless. Hizashi didn't realize his quirk activated. A high-pitched whine filled the room, making the furniture vibrate. Sansa flattened and covered his ears. Nao pulled the file from his partner's hands and threw it on the desk. He grabbed Hizashi's face and forced him to look at him. Excuse me. Sashi. Retrying. My brain fogged. Sashi, take a deep breath and hold it. Hizashi obeyed. The whine cut off, leaving only a static sound that indicated he was trying to control his quirk. What's got you so upset? Hizashi took a few more deep breaths, but when he spoke, his voice still crackled. It's him, Namo. It's him, no. It's him, Noi. Subject 11 is the green bean. Noi. Now froze for a split second before he turned and snatched the file off the desk. His eyes widened, coming to the horrific realization as Hizashi, when Shota's voice came over the private frequency. You're going to want to see this. After passing a still unconscious wear off to a couple fellow heroes, Shota finally approached the door. He didn't know what he would find inside as he turned the key, but it was not this. It was a small concrete constant. One minute. Looking up. Concrete? Yeah, concrete. That's spelled so weird. It was a small concrete room with a thin mattress off to the side. There was a single window up near the high ceiling. Someone had been in here recently. A partially finished bowl of rice sat beside the bed. Even more confusing, there were colorful drawings decorating the walls. Doodles of outdoor scenes, swirls, patterns, plants, stars, flowers, heroes. It was the drawings of the heroes that made Shota call out on the task force private frequency. He recognized some of those drawings. Nao and Hizashi arrived a minute later, stepping into the room, finding Shota running his fingers over a portrait of Silky. Izuku was here, he said quietly. We know. We know. Nao replied. Shota whipped around. Hizashi looked pale as he drifted over to study the drawings. Now Nao was clenching a few files to his chest like a lifeline. Seeing where his partner was focused, Nao held the files out to him. Sansa is copying the rest, but we're taking these with us. Shota opened the file labeled Phase 3, Subject 11. Phase 3, Patient, Subject 11, quirkless. Status, quirk function present, but dormant. Session 1. Date, June 23rd. Dose. Trigger, 15 milligrams. Subject 11 exhibited symptoms of an adrenaline rush immediately upon injection. Monitoring via Nurse R's diagnosis quirk detected no harmful health effects. Subject experienced an adrenaline crash 1 hour and 9 minutes after injection. Subject's quirk function remained dormant. Session 2. Date, June 25th. Dose, trigger, 16 milligrams. Subject 11's baseline health and vitals returned normal after 2 days of detox. The experiment was repeated with similar results. Subject 11's crashed 1 hour and 6 minutes after injection. Subject's quirk function. Subject 11's quirk functure remained dormant and undamaged. Session 3. Date, June 27th. Dose, trigger, 17 milligrams. No change to report. Subject crashed 1 hour and 2 minutes after injection. Subject 11's quirk functure remains dormant and undamaged. Session 4. Session 4. Date, June 29th. Dose, cancelled. Subject 11 failed to sober during the 2-day detox. Subject will be returned to his cell for an additional 2 Subject will return to his cell for 2 additional days of detox. Session 4B. Date, July 1st. Dose, trigger, 18 milligrams. Subject 11's baseline health and vitals return to normal after 4 days of detox. Subject has begun to show signs of drug dependency. The adrenaline rush symptoms are not as intense, and his vitals show a significant improvement when compared to Session 1. Subject crashed 58 minutes after injection. Subject 11's quirk function remained dormant and undamaged. Session 5, July 4th. Dose, 19 milligrams. Confirm of drug dependency. Subject became emotional upon injection following an immediate relaxation. providing theory that is that trigger makes subject 11's underlying pain and lingering detox symptoms. Providing a theory to that trigger masks subject 11's pain and lingering detox symptoms. Subject crashed 53 minutes after injection. Subject 11's quirk function remained dormant and undamaged. Session 5 continued. Date July 5th. The morning after Session 5, Subject 11 refused to eat, claiming nausea. An attempt was made to force feed the subject, resulting in vomiting. Subject 11 has been moved to clinic for IV nutrients. The subject has low-grade fever. Session 6. Date July 7th. Doses trigger 20 milligrams. Subject 11's fever has not broken. Experiment will proceed regardless. 41 minutes after injection, Nurse R detected an oncoming stroke. Nurse H immediately administered healing. Subject crashed 48 minutes after injection. Subject lost consciousness but is otherwise stable. He'll be moved to clinic for IV nutrients. Unfortunately, Subject 11's quirk remained dormant and undamaged despite the overdose. Session 7. Date July 12th. Dosage trigger 21 milligrams. Subject 11's fever broke after 5 days of detox. 34 minutes after injection, subject experienced another stroke. Nurse H administered healing. Subject crashed 44 minutes after injection. Subject 11's quirk function still remains unchanged. Shota didn't know when he slid to the floor, leaning up against the crayon-covered wall. Subject 11? He asked, not wanting the answer. It's Izuku. Nayo confirmed. I'll answer my mom in a minute. Shota wanted to rip the files to pieces. Did you read this? Nayo shook his head. We read phase 2. They operated on him without anesthetic. The edge of the paper crinkled, and Shota's white knuckle grip. They put him on trigger. They overdosed a 6-year-old on trigger twice. He wasn't even going to get in the fact that they had gotten a 6-year-old addicted to trigger. Hey, over here, Hisashi called. He had wandered over to the mattress and kicked it aside, revealing writing in dark green crayon. The trio gathered around to read it. For Subject 12. Hi, I'm Izuku. I was Subject 11. I slept here before you. Sorry to call you Subject 12. They may not give you that name yet, but if you're here, that's who you'll become. I've been here for 2 months. For the first month, they focused on making me healthy enough for their experiments. They called this Phase 1. If they have you in Phase 1, do whatever you can to keep them from moving you to Phase 2. I'm in Phase 3 now. In a couple of days, I'm going to get my 8th injection of trigger. I won't survive. There is hope for you. The heroes may not come for us, but the trigger operation they are running is growing. It's only a matter of time until someone comes to break it. Until then, survive. Fight however you can. I'll be rooting for you, wherever I end up. Goodbye. Poor sweet boy, Hisashi said softly. He didn't think anyone was looking for him. Shota skimmed over the message again. There's no Session 8 in the report. Now referred to the file. Session 7 was 2 days ago. The detox time between injection was up to 4 or 5 days. It wouldn't have happened yet, he informed them. Then where's the green bean? The three of them looked around the room. Shota's eyes wandered up towards the window. It was small, but a child, especially a small, skinny child, could fit. Looking closer, he noticed it wasn't closed all the way, leaving a couple inch gap between the wall and the bars. A gasp. A gap he would be able to see from outside. Son of a bitch, he swore. What is it, Sho? He escaped just before the raid. He slipped out right under my nose. That's the end of Chapter 5. Chapter 6 is next. I'm going to read the title and the summary. And then that'll be all. Chapter 6. From the Ashes. Summary. Is that a quirk I see? That is all. Thank you all for listening. Izuku is finally out. We're going to see him out in the world. And maybe meet the feral cats that were mentioned in the summary at the beginning. That'll be fun. And maybe even meet the unlikely friends. Who do you guys think the unlikely friends are? I'm going to be honest. I know who they are. I want to say I was in somewhere in the teens before I started reading this to you guys. But until next time, my beautiful mythical creatures, peace out. Stay hydrated and eat donuts. And it's going to be hot the next couple of days, including today, so please be careful of the heat. Bye-bye.